Hello, hello, everyone. It is Kenyon here. It is Basketball Rewind, and we are back for the second part. I turned on my lights because it is getting dark outside. It is still January 15th, although this may or may not get out on the same day as the first part of this discussion. Please take the time, check out that discussion. It's a great discussion. There will at least be a link in the description down below. I love how I can say that now. And so, yeah, if you like this conversation, well, great, you're here and we can continue it. So, Coach Roach, I will skip the pleasantries because I already gave you that in the first part of this video. So we will just continue on this conversation. The current state of the Raptors is no bueno, simply put. For more on that, check the other video out. That's really all I can say on that front. So we already talked about the major issues that there are in terms of this, and you had a tough time selling me on staying the course. You said it is above your pay grade, basically. Call Masai. That's why he gets paid the big bucks. So, all right. With that being said, if we're not going to be likely to stay the course, there are potentially two paths to take. I'm going to frame them in a particular manner. You like calling it a retool. I like calling it a half step back. So when I say when we talk about retool or half step back, we're not talking about getting Miles Turner, I presume, to try to make the playoffs, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I'm just making sure. I mean, if you'd like to, we could also discuss that too, but a full step back is closer to a teardown. So if we frame it that way, I guess before we really get into the two paths, my first question for you is, this is tough. The elephant in the room is Fred on this team at the start of next season.
And that is a very tough question to answer.
Sorry.
Because Fred, I think, has gotten a lot of criticism to a degree that's more than just criticism. When you're a player, you know when you're playing well and when you're not. When you're struggling and the team is losing, you know you're not playing well. I wish I had a good answer for you, truthfully, on this. I really don't know if he's going to be on this team moving forward after this season.
It's tough. They're in a tough spot because on one hand, he is a champion. He's given a lot to this franchise. He, as we see now, has given and sacrificed his body. Again, I have said it before. I think he should have, and I think it's almost clear now. It's hard to argue otherwise. He probably should have gotten surgery in the offseason. It's something that he discussed was an option and ultimately opted not to get, which is unfortunate because now we are here. He did not sign his extension. I guess, he could still, but it sounds like it was mutually agreed that they would discuss this at the end of the season. In my opinion, do you think that number is still on the table?
I think it's possible that the original contract extension might be on there.
With potential half steps back. So let me complete that framing. A half step back is not going to be looking at a full teardown, which means that you're not going to be likely to trade OG or Siakam.
Correct. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen either. And full disclosure, I don't think it should happen. Why? Again, I'm going to ask you to sell me, put, it may be above your pay grade, and if so, that's okay. But can you sell me on? Can you sell me on keeping Fred? Because the sell for GTJ is a little easier based on his age.
Yeah. I'm taking a guess here with the organization. I don't think they would be opposed to signing Fred if it was like a 2-year extension. I think 4 years, it's a bit tricky there.
2-year extension is pretty tough to do because in 2 years, then you're already looking at re-upping him again or trying to do another extension. And also on a 2-year deal, you get to the same problem that you have with GTJ, where you can't negotiate with this guy if he does outperform that contract. Number two, you're now entering into a new CBA, so you're now looking at giving him even more money. So if you're going to lock him up, you might as well lock him up on this. Sorry, I just need to push back a little bit, just
Yep.
from the other side's advocate group. Why would Fred like? I just don't know if I see Fred signing a 2-year deal because he already has a player option.
Yeah. What about a 3-year deal? Would he? Do you think he would consider that maybe like that
He might
same
have
that
to.
Lowry got? Lowry got the 3-year 90. That was 30 a year.
I don't think he's Lowry. And I don't think we should be framing it as, well, Lowry got this.
Mhm.
He might do it behind closed doors and say, well, Lowry got this and I deserve that, but you're not Lowry.
Yeah.
In all respect, he doesn't play like Lowry. He is a shoot first point guard. I think that that's the best way to describe Fred, and I think that's a fair way to describe Fred. He is a shoot first point guard. Lowry is a different animal, but they're completely different players. And I don't really expect Fred to ever play like Lowry. I don't think
Mhm.
that that's a fair expectation to put on him. So if I'm Masai and Bobby, I think it's really tough to look at it. And I understand Raptors fans are very committed to their guys, but I think you seriously have to consider him as an outgoing piece for this trade deadline and also potentially GTJ as well.
You probably don't want to let him walk, whatever they decide. And I'm just basing this on history.
That I definitely agree with, and I would say for me, if I were selling the keep Fred till the end of the season and then see what happens, I'm more doing it under the guise of, okay, yes, there are a lot of teams with cap space, but I do think that free agency is being approached from a different manner. You're seeing a lot more sign and trades these years. So for me, you have not maybe not the leverage, but you do have a little bit of leverage with bird rights and everything to basically negotiate with him and his agent to say, we've done right by you in the past. We're still wanting to do right by you now, but let's do a sign and trade so at least we get something out of you.
Sure. And that's something that may be an option for them, but I guess it's hard for me to sell you.
If a guy like Fred is leaving, my opinion, I think it's important to let him leave with dignity. I wrote a post about this the other day. And it really is important to not just, like the Fresh Prince meme where they chuck the guy out the door. Like you don't want to do that because then you could have serious problems signing free agents. The other thing is that now that we've kind of talked about those half step backs, which would probably be GTJ or Fred, we're going to get into the full step backs. Now, full step backs could be kind of like James Harden, right? Back in the day on Houston, where he is, able to go back to the 3 point line and swish that thing down for the score and potentially even an and one, a 4 point play. But it doesn't always work out. It isn't working out for James Harden. We have seen teams like, the Sacramento Kings, who spent all this time in the lottery for, I think it's been 16 years, or as I frame it, since the last Bush was in the White House, since they've even made the playoffs. And they've been in the lottery this entire time. And they've drafted a lot of picks. Or you could be the Washington Wizards over the past couple years. When you're committing to, it's not just about patience, but it is actually quite difficult, in my opinion, to do a complete teardown where you're trading a Siakam or a OG Ananobi. So that's the first thing. The other thing is that with those two being the main pieces that would be outgoing in a potential full teardown rebuild, if you're trading OG, it's really hard to trade him, in my opinion. Or sorry, not hard to trade him, but it's hard to replace the value that he gives. He gives a lot on the offensive and defensive end from a physical standpoint. And Siakam, I don't care what people say if he's a number one or number two. I don't really care about that conversation today. Let's call him a number two guy just for the sake of argument. If he's a number two guy, it can be sometimes just as hard to find a number two guy as it is to find a number one guy. The other thing, and here's the final thing, is that if you do look to trade a possible Siakam or an OG Anunoby, it has been rumored that we would get probably a Donovan Mitchell type package, or that would be the expectation. When I look at the landscape of the league, I'm going to end this off with a question, but do you see any team that could truly give us that today during the season?
If they want it to, but I don't know how much they want to give us. I think it's a team that is looking to be a buyer. Maybe they view OG as the missing piece for their championship team, or they view OG as the missing piece to get to the next level.
I mean, OG is going to be coveted by everyone, so that's without saying. But I think the point that I'm trying to say is that you look at trading an OG or a Siakam right now, and in my mind, I look at the teams that have picks, that have prospects, and it's going to be hard to pry the exact Donovan Mitchell package before the draft. So
correct.
The way that I look at it is I don't think it's possible to even reasonably take the second option, the full step back before the draft. So for any of you Raptors fans that want to take a full step back, again, I don't want to, but if you do, I would wait till the draft because I think that there's a good chance that if let's say you want to at least solidify, I'm getting X player in this draft, I would still wait for the draft to do that.
Yes, what a deal ideally if they were to explore trading him. I mean, after this year, he's got 1 year left on his deal.
Yeah,
it's a tricky situation. What I see with Anunoby is any trade that involves him is a rebuild. It's a tank trade. Like with Mitchell, they got young players and draft picks back. With Gobert, it was the same thing. Picks, young players. With OG, you're probably looking at that as well.
And I'm assuming you would say the same about Siakam as well.
Oh yeah, no, you're only trading those guys if Masai said, nope, we're not there. We don't have enough high-end talent right now to compete with Boston, Milwaukee, and Brooklyn and Philly. We have to tear this down and rebuild. And he's never done that before, but I will say one thing.
Mm-hmm.
When you win a championship, more often than not, you will get the approval of ownership to do what you want. So if Masai approaches ownership and says, I can rebuild this thing from the ground up, which I don't think he's going to do, but if he did, they going to say no?
I think that they can go in a lot of different directions. They can.
Yes.
They have the ability to do it, and I would understand if they did, especially based on the current state of, Raptors world. I understand if they said, you know what, we're not happy with this tank. Let's go shopping for the best tank possible, and get this bad boy a jet engine.
Yep.
I would understand it. I don't think that they're going to do it. So my question is, what do you think that they will do? Followed up by if you were Masai, what would you do?
I think they will retool. I think they will move a few pieces, kind of mid-major pieces, and they may try to get some different pieces in and see if they can acquire a pick or a couple picks in there as well. So it's like you're retooling, but you're still getting some picks, ideally first round, to move forward with it.
Right.
That's what I think they will do.
Right. And what would you do?
This is a deep draft this year.
It is.
I'm keeping Pascal. I'm keeping Scotty.
Okay.
And unless you wow me with a deal, I'm keeping OG moving forward.
Okay.
Those are my moves that I'm
Okay, so I guess for myself, yeah, like I think I don't see them staying the course. I think that we kind of established that at the top of the, we'll call it the hour, so to speak. Yeah, I think a half step. I think that they have the stomach for a full rebuild, but I believe they might feel like if they do a half step back and they quote unquote tank or do a stealth tank for this season, I think that they might believe that there's a possibility that whatever assets that go out could be gathered to either move up in the draft or to get them better. One thing that I've recognized and started to learn about with the Raptors is how they built that championship team. They used a lot of these draft picks to either, you know, build out their core and or trade to fill out the remaining pieces. We have our cupboard almost fully stocked. We have lacked the ability to get good draft picks in recent memory, except for Scotty Barnes. That was probably the highest. When I say good, I mean lottery picks. When I
Mhm.
look at the lottery, I look at guys like Shea or Booker or Donovan
Klay
Mitchell
Thompson.
or Klay Thompson. Those guys were selected at least 15th or above in terms of their lottery selection.
Mhm.
So we need some decent first round picks to fill out this roster. That's the way that I look at it. I think to fill out the bench, to fill out the 905 pipeline, you need good potential projects to work on instead of working on a blank canvas. I don't think, again, I don't think that any sort of team can match what we would require out of a deal. However, with that being in terms of a OG or Siakam deal, I think I had a ton of fun, even though it was a challenging conversation to have about the Raptors. I feel optimistic, and telling from Coach Roach's nods, he is somewhat optimistic as well, probably a little bit more optimistic than I am currently.
Mhm.
So the worst thing that they can do is, in my opinion, wait till the end of the season and try to figure it out then. I think it'll be too late. I think you have to make certain decisions and have certain hard conversations. The last thing that I will say in terms of a Pascal Siakam, because this keeps getting brought up on in online spaces, is how do you sell it on Pascal Siakam? Well, guess what? I do have a Siakam video that is coming up, but not only do I have that, I will say this. Siakam has gone through hell and back for and with this management team.
Yeah.
The fan base has been fairly nasty to this guy in the past multiple times, including petitions to send him back, quote unquote, home to Africa. Really disgusting stuff, really sad stuff. And I think that Raptors fans need to remember that when they're talking about this guy. Why do I bring that up? Is because when you stand by a guy like that, when you give press conferences saying this guy is someone that I go to war with, when you look at the fact that he is one of many, but he is one of the crowns and the jewels that we have been able to extract from the Giants of Africa program, I think that
Yes.
Masai really values Siakam quite highly. So for that reason, I think that there is a relationship there that you can kind of sell this dream and vision on and basically say, hey, give us 2 years. We're going to give you a max at bare minimum. If Siakam does not make all NBA, it's more likely than not because of the fact that we suck as a team. So it's not to say that he doesn't deserve it, but realistically, hey, you're probably not going to get the supermax. Now, he brought this up in a conversation because someone asked him, and he said that he's not about that. He wants to win. And I think that he's already been given a max, he's already gotten paid. So it's a lot easier framing of a discussion to have to say, hey, we're going to take a step back to take a step forward, but we want to win with you, regardless of what that takes. And again, if
Yep.
he's a number one or a number two guy, it doesn't matter. Let's move forward and make steps forward to get him some help. and get Barnes help and get Anunoby help. So,
Yep.
with that framing in mind, I just also want to say the draft is eventually going to come up. I'm hoping that you will come on this channel to do some draft stuff, some more in-depth stuff, to at least bring some fun spunk on this. We will have other discussions, not necessarily all of them will be Raptors related. Most of them will be directly related to basketball. So, with that being said, I enjoyed your time. And I just want to say, everyone, thank you for watching and giving me your time. Like, comment, and subscribe down below. It helps me with the algorithm. Share on different platforms if you can. And I hope that you are all having a good day when you watch this. Thank you so much and take care.